Lindsey damn Graham, the senator, says he doesn't care that he has a subpoena to testify in the state of Georgia. Grand jury issued a subpoena. A judge signed it. Let's put up a picture of the district attorney who is investigating Donald Trump, former president, for his crime of trying to overturn the Georgia election. Now in Georgia, it is against the law to attempt to persuade an elected official or any other official in relation to an election. That is the DA. Her name is Fani Willis. She's an African-American female. She decided to put together a special purpose grand jury to investigate the matter. This grand jury has amazing investigative authority. They can last for roughly 12 months. They also have the ability to subpoena individuals, and they can ask and subpoena individuals who are not targets of the investigation. A judge simply has to sign off if the subpoena goes outside of the state of Georgia. That's exactly what happened. Now, according to the DA, she's not playing games. Here's a direct quote. "Anything's possible," Fani Willis said, in response to a question about whether Donald Trump himself could be subpoenaed. "We'll just have to see where the investigation leads us. I think that people thought that we came into this as some kind of game." Let me read that quote again, because I just love it. She said, "I think that people thought that we came into this as some kind of game. In other words, we're not playing games with these white folks." That's what she's saying. There's more. She continued, "This is not a game at all. What I am doing is very serious. It's very important. And we're going to do our due diligence in making sure that we look at all aspects of the case." Now, damn it, she needs to be the attorney general. Now, just imagine if she was the AG right now instead of Merrick Garland. Just think about that, okay? Senator Lindsey Graham intends to fight the subpoena for his testimony in the Georgia investigation over potential criminal interference in the state's 2020 election, according to a statement from his attorneys. Now, let's put up the picture of Brad Raffensperger, the chief elections officer. You remember in the recorded conversation when Donald Trump told Brad Raffensperger that he needed to find additional votes. And Brad Raffensperger, the chief elections officer, said, "No, Mr. President, your numbers are wrong. There are not additional votes. There was no voter fraud, et cetera, et cetera." Well, Trump continued to pressure not only him, but also one of his top investigators in the office. But here's the thing, Lindsey Graham, the reason why he doesn't want to testify as a witness is because he knows he's a criminal. You see, Lindsey Graham did the exact same thing. Lindsey Graham also called Raffensperger. Lindsey Graham did exactly what Trump did, but he did it first. Lindsey Graham may say something under oath that absolutely creates a criminal penalty. A special grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia wants the South Carolina Republican to testify about at least 2 December phone conversations he had with the Secretary of State Raffensperger and Raffensperger's staff following former President Donald Trump's loss in 2020. So a pair of attorneys from the law firm Nelson Mullins said they had spoken to investigators in Fulton County who consider Graham neither a subject nor target of the investigation, simply a witness. The attorneys, Bart Daniel and Matt Austin, said Wednesday that this is all politics and called the investigation a fishing expedition that is working with the committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. As chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Graham was well within his rights to discuss with state officials the processes and procedures around administering elections, the attorneys state. Should it stand, the subpoena issued today would erode the constitutional balance of power and the ability of a member of Congress to do their job. Now, they're not citing law, they're not citing the Constitution. They're citing something that they just believe should happen. They're saying, oh, this would just erode at the congressional oversight and the balance of power. They're just making stuff up, they're freestyling, all right? This is nowhere codified in a statute. This does not exist in a constitutional dynamic whatsoever. Georgia officials, now understand why they're saying they need Lindsey Graham. Georgia officials allege that during the telephone calls, all right, during these calls, Senator Graham questioned Secretary Raffensperger and his staff about re-examining certain absentee ballots cast in Georgia in order to explore the possibility of a more favorable outcome for former President Donald Trump, according to the certificate to secure what's called an out-of-state witness. Here's why that's important. The grand jury does not have the authority to directly subpoena an out-of-state witness. In order to subpoena an out-of-state witness, it must be signed by a judge. And the judge looked at the request from the grand jury and said, yes, I agree with you. This is a witness material to your investigation. So you don't simply have the power of the DA's office or the power of the grand jury. You also have the power of the judge who signed it, a superior court judge who signed this subpoena. The certificate also says that Senator Graham possesses unique knowledge of the substance of the calls, the circumstances surrounding his decision to make the calls, and the logistics of setting up the calls. It also said Senator Graham has knowledge about any coordination of the calls with the Trump campaign and other known and unknown individuals involved in the multi-state coordinated efforts to influence the results of the November 2020 election in Georgia and elsewhere. Graham was one of 7 individuals the grand jury issued subpoenas for. It also includes John Eastman, Rudy Giuliani, and others. Quite fascinating, quite interesting that an individual can simply say no to a subpoena. Now, if you get a traffic summons and you don't show up to court, well, they're gonna issue a warrant for your arrest. Here's what's fascinating. While this would be an infraction, meaning ignoring a subpoena, that's an infraction, that's a no-no. But infractions are only as strong as enforcement. Is the judge willing to hold Lindsey Graham in contempt of court if he decides to snub this subpoena? That's the direction you have to go in. And if I were the DA right now, I would say very clearly, people who do not answer our subpoenas will have a warrant for their arrest. And we enforce extradition to pick your ass up anywhere in this country. And that's how you play ball. All right, Ms. Dahl, thoughts on this?
Gosh, so many thoughts. For one, I think this Georgia investigation, as you said, is not playing, and it's probably the strongest investigation about any of Trump's activities that may result in any kind of criminal charge. And just to kind of back up for your viewers, what a grand jury is doing is they're deciding whether or not there's probable cause to charge. Some jurisdictions require grand juries, but usually it's also just done in a high profile case like this. It gives the prosecutor a chance to kind of test the strength of their case before they charge. So if they come back, then they are just charging it, and then there's a whole trial to decide guilt or innocence. I think Senator Graham's argument, like you said, is really, his argument is above the law. Somehow being a senator doesn't make him subject to subpoena power. That is going to go nowhere. I mean, you can fight a subpoena based on things like maybe it's overly broad, right? Or unduly burdensome. They didn't say that in their quotes because probably it's not true. Most likely, I think what will happen is, like you said, he probably doesn't want to be held in contempt of court. He will probably end up showing up because I don't think he has good ground to fight this, and he'll end up taking the fifth, because those calls could subject him to criminal prosecution. And then it's going to be about what kind of questions can the DA get that he can't take the fifth for, and maybe they can still get some information around that that's helpful to them in their investigation.
You are so spot on. Obviously, the government cannot compel you to make statements against yourself. You cannot be compelled by the government to do so. But I do believe there's a way here to get Lindsey Graham on the record where there's an immunity factor applied and he simply has to answer the questions. We'll see if they go that far. All right, once again, this kind of grand jury is allowed to investigate for 12 months straight. So this is going to be a chess match, not a checkers game.